All right, what's up, pop culture fans? How you guys doing tonight? Welcome to New Jersey HorrorCon. The amazing pop culture writer Caseen Gaines is here. Please make some noise for Caseen Gaines.
How are ya?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Great.
Thank you so much for being here.
No problem, of course.
Taking time away from being at your table.
It's okay. We're all talking pop culture. It's a good time.
Absolutely.
Whether it's here at my table.
Absolutely, definitely. So, speaking of pop culture, I guess we'll start right at the beginning.
Yes.
What inspired you to become a pop culture writer?
Well, I actually grew up watching a lot of television. I don't know if anyone else watched a lot of television, but I watched a lot of TV, a lot of movies, and I used to walk around like a big geek with a bunch of pop culture books. So I used to have a book called The Twilight Zone Companion. I used to have a book on The Little Rascals, The Wizard of Oz, and this is back before DVD special features and things like that. So I loved behind the scenes stories, and when I got older, I actually had an opportunity to write some of these pop culture stories, which is just sort of amazing. My little fifth grade self geeks out every time I get a new opportunity to work on a project.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very, very cool. So delving so deeply into the pop culture that you loved as a kid, do you ever feel like seeing behind the curtain takes some of the magic out for you as a viewer, or does the experience kind of even deepen your connection to the pop culture that you already love?
That's a great question. Both. In some cases, I've definitely written about some individuals that and it's soured the experience a little bit. But in most cases, just having a greater opportunity to dig into, Jim Henson's, life and career, for example, with The Dark Crystal. I mean, my level of appreciation for Jim Henson was already through the roof, and then having the opportunity to see how much detail went into everything that he did, especially at a time in his career when he could have done anything, and he chose to do a film like The Dark Crystal, just kind of makes it all the cooler for me.
Very cool. Definitely dig that. So what made you decide to make Inside Pee-wee's Playhouse your first book, and what was the most fun part of writing that book for you?
Well, the most fun part about writing Inside Pee-wee's Playhouse, shameless plug.
Yes, plug
Inside
it up.
Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's a book, and you can wear it. You can kind of line it up like this. It kind of works that way.
Cosplayers.
Exactly, cosplayers walking around. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk around as me with my book. But Inside Pee-wee's Playhouse was interesting because I'd never written a book before. I did know one person in my life who has written a book before, an author by the name of Chris Ryan, who's a friend and colleague of mine. And as I started to kind of reach out to people that worked on Pee-wee's Playhouse, just as a fan, as a geek, saying oh, I really liked your work, and I email with you, that sort of thing. People started sharing all these great stories, and my friend was like, why don't you do a book? And I was like, I never thought about that. I don't really think it's that easy. And he was like, well, just give it a shot. And it came, thankfully, kind of easily in a weird sort of way. Just the timing was kind of right for the Pee Wee Herman book, but the most fun part, besides the fact that I could go into a Barnes & Noble and find a book, with my name on it that I had written, was just being able to relive this experience of being in the 1980s, being a kid, waking up on Saturday morning, eating a giant bowl of cereal and screaming real loud and having just cereal and milk and just grossness, down my chest. Being able to live in the world of Pee-wee's Playhouse for 2 years, was just so much fun, especially since at the time, Paul Reubens wasn't really doing the Pee Wee Herman character at the time that I was writing the book. So I got to get a lot of, childhood feelings back, I guess is a good way of putting it.
Sure, totally. I got a lot back reading as well. And one of the things I loved about Inside Pee-wee's Playhouse was how incredibly well researched it was. And to think that you never written anything like that before, it just blows my mind. But one factoid that really kind of caught my eye when I read it, and sort of made me jump out of my seat.
No, I'm nervous.
Was you were talking about that around the time of the incident, that TV shows were actually having psychologists on to teach parents how to explain the incident to their kids. And I love going down rabbit holes and doing research and stuff like that, and I'm sure you got really deep into it. So I was wondering, did you come across any footage of that, and do you remember what shows?
Yeah,
or
I
networks had
did.
that?
It was mostly like nighttime news and things like it's not like 2020, things like that. They had these segments about how to talk to your kids about Pee Wee Herman and how to explain, what's going on. And I remember being a kid. I was young enough to be a kid when the incident happened, and it was a very serious, like my parents like had like a conversation with me, like it was like the talk in a weird sort of way. I mean, like I don't want to like make it sound more dramatic than it was, but it was very dramatic.
No, it was. It totally. I felt the same way.
It was weird.
Like I had never heard of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like 7 years old. So
yeah. So it's weird too because
it was very
as a kid, I think the thing with Pee Wee Herman, and this is, when you write a book on Pee Wee Herman, you get a lot of unsolicited opinions about Pee Wee Herman, as you would imagine. And, I think the incident was as big as it was because of the mystique of the Pee Wee Herman character. That's my theory. That Paul Reubens was never really credited unless it was as a writer or a director or a producer, but Pee Wee Herman was always as himself. The character existed. And even when Paul Reubens was doing talk shows as Pee Wee Herman, it was always in character. For 8 years, he never gave an interview as himself. So I think it was, for a lot of people, like, oh, that's who this person really is, and that's who I've been entrusting my kids to watch every Saturday morning. I think it was more of that, which is a little fake, hysteria, But that's my theory of it.
But that makes sense. Yeah, it's like even adults believed he was really Pee Wee Herman in a large sense. You know, that's very interesting. So after
I love that story. That's what Pee Wee Herman would say in that book.
definitely.
I love that.
I love that story. So after the success of Inside Pee Wee's Playhouse, you shifted your attention to another 80s childhood classic, A Christmas Story. What made you want to tell that story next, and what surprised you the most that you didn't already know as a fan?
Because I wanted to meet Zach Ward. No, I'm saying that because Zach is here, and Zach Ward is a great friend of mine, so he'll appreciate that answer. I hope he can hear it over there. But no, I actually was in Cleveland for a Pee Wee Herman event, and I had a couple hours to kill, and I went to the Christmas Story house. I don't know if people know, but there's this house in Cleveland. Have you been there? I haven't. Oh yeah, so it's remarkable. So when you go inside the house, what's really remarkable about it is that the exterior is where they shot A Christmas Story, but the interior, they never actually went inside the house, except for just one shot with the leg lamp in the window. Nothing else was actually done inside of that house. However, a gentleman by the name of Brian Jones purchased the house and renovated the inside to completely match the film. It's the most amazing thing. So when I went, it was like a Monday. No, it wasn't a Monday. It was like a Thursday morning or something like that. And it was packed. And it was in January. And I said, there is something, I mean, I loved A Christmas Story, but I didn't realize that it had the sort of fandom that it has until I went to the house. And I was like, I think there's something there, But I just love the film, I just love the film so much. It reminds me so much about what being a child is, which is people telling you no every day, and you just trying to find someone to say yes to you. That's really what that comes down to.
Oh, very true, very true.
At least that was my childhood. My mother said no to everything I wanted to do.
No, I think that's what it's like being a kid. You live in a world mostly of no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're just trying everything. You know. So you've also been involved in several documentaries as well. What were your experiences like working on the Christmas Story documentary and on Your Mark as well?
Yeah, wow, thank you for asking about those.
Of course.
On Your Mark was really great because I got to do that with a friend of mine, Matt Klickstein, who wrote a great book called Slimed, which is all about Nickelodeon's golden age. So Ren and Stimpy, what would you do as a part of the golden age? So, Salute Your Shorts, Are You Afraid of the Dark? All of it. It's a great, great, great book, and go pick it up. His name is Matthew Klickstein, 1 T in Matthew. But he was doing this. He got to know Mark Summers very well doing this book, and because I'm a pop culture guy and I've spoken about, talked shop about Nickelodeon a bunch of times, he asked me if I would do it, and it was great because if you've watched Double Dare, you might remember Robin from Double Dare. She was like the co-host almost, not Harvey the announcer, but she was like Mark Summers' right hand, lady gal. But I got to go to her house. I actually filmed my little segment in her house, and her house is like massive. Like, I hope I'm not talking out of turn, but like Double Dare, like she must be like a millionaire from like this. It was a huge house.
Wow.
In New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And so she was filming a segment for Double Dare, for the documentary, and we got to chat and hang out, and I sat on her couch and filmed my segment there. And the Christmas Story thing was fun too. That was like oddly hard because they asked really hard questions. And I often say like one sentence more than I'm supposed to when I'm being interviewed. So it was hard to kind of bite my tongue and remember that this is going to be on television and I might get in trouble for saying something too far. I've been quoted, I've been quoted in a newspaper once saying something and then saying, I'm not sure I can say that. They actually printed what I said and then I'm not sure I can say that.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of enigmatic of the way that I work.
Oh, wow. Well, I could definitely identify with that. I definitely look down way too much and say way too many times. So I definitely feel your pain there. So your third book, We Don't Need Roads, is of course about the amazing Back to the Future trilogy. The book is perfection, start to finish, but my favorite part is unquestionably the fact that you discuss the studio politics that kept C. Thomas Howell out of contention for the role of Marty McFly. And this has always been I felt like this is over for years. This is the story that no one's talking about because this guy should have gotten his chance. See, I love Michael J. Fox. It's perfection, you know what I mean? His Marty McFly. I don't want it to be anyone else. But because there was the Eric Stoltz thing, I always wanted to see C. Thomas Howell would have been fine in that role. Eric Stoltz didn't
And that was
work
his
out.
time. I mean, he was at the right age. I mean, that could have really worked out.
Oh yeah, he was coming off of E.T. Just a few years before, and I want to visit for one day an alternate universe, not where it's the Eric Stoltz, but it's the C. Thomas Howell back. I just want to see it.
So if we get a big chalkboard, we can draw an alternate timeline that skews into 1984A. That would be, and then we can go see.
Right. But was that an important story for you to learn about and get out there when you set out to write the book?
Let me tell you. So We Don't Need Roads. You know how you're not supposed to have a favorite child, but all parents have a favorite child. And all the siblings know who the favorite child is. I know that I'm my parents' favorite child. We Don't Need Roads it's like my baby, it really is. And for me, that book, the C. Thomas Howell story, the story about the stunt woman who almost died.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
There were all of these stories. The key for me with We Don't Need Roads and where I knew I had a book here was I was speaking with Leah Thompson about Eric Stoltz being cast as Marty McFly before Michael J. Fox. And so she said, well, you have to remember, I did a film with Eric Stoltz before Back to the Future.
Wildlife.
So, right. Love this. So she said, it wasn't just that I was losing the leading man of the film. My friend was being fired from the movie.
Yeah.
And then when I did the sequels, Crispin, who was weird, but I had a great relationship with, was not brought back for the sequels, and I had to work with another actor. Right. And so she said, there almost isn't a scene in Back to the Future, in any of the three films, where I'm not acting alongside someone that's reminding me of the person I really liked working with that was let go.
Oh, wow, yeah. And every scene is, Marty
after that, I thought to myself, wow, we've all heard about Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future. We've all heard about Crispin Glover being a wackadoo. Right. But, it's that sort of human story that I was if I can just get more of those in the book, then there can be something here. And so it was great. And I thank Leah for that because that really helped me to ask different sorts of questions when talking to people.
For sure, yeah. It's funny. I met Leah at a panel in Virginia, actually.
She's a sweetheart, isn't she?
Absolutely amazing.
She's absolutely great.
Absolutely amazing. Her and Alan, who's also great.
Yep.
And they Q&A, I was in the front row, and they go, first question, I just shot my hand up with almost like a baton in my hand, right? So they had no choice. They called right on me, and I stood up and I asked this about C. Thomas Howell.
Yes.
And she was very gracious. She said almost the same thing though. It's before I'd read your book. It's like I just always had this feeling that there was more to that story, that like C. Thomas Howell was closer than we know about to being Marty McFly.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I don't really know. That's kind of, that wasn't at our level. Alan said the same thing. So she's like, they only looked at me because they were looking at Eric Stoltz, and they looked at a movie I did, The Wildlife. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really think much of it. I just, thanked them for the time, and then we went, it was a live score screening. And I'll wrap it up quick because I know I'm going on a tangent here.
It's okay.
But,
I love tangents.
So after that little Q&A, we're walking back to, this different area where they're going to go show the movie with a live score.
Yeah.
And all these people keep grabbing me on the way, like, thank you so much for asking that question. Like, I've wanted to know about that forever. Like, blah, 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 blah. And I wish I could have told these people to read your book back then. Oh, my God.
Well, listen, I see your tangent. I raise you one more quick one, unless you have a question about it, which I hope I'm not. But as great as it was to talk to Leah Thompson for We Don't Need Roads, I also then did an oral history on Howard the Duck.
Yes.
That I spoke to Leah. And let me tell you, like, that was... this is so... I'm not even embarrassed. You know what? I'm not even embarrassed by it. As a kid, I loved Howard the Duck so much. I didn't know that I was supposed to not like it. I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Wait, new question. Did we just become best friends?
Yes. Yeah. Come on. Absolutely. But I didn't know, that it was like the worst movie. And
when you're a kid, you have no idea.
Yeah, and it was so crazy being able to talk to Leah Thompson about Howard the Duck. That was like... I will die a happy man. I don't care what happens.
Yeah, I know. I got to talk about Howard for like 2 seconds, and I was ecstatic.
It's worth it.
Yeah, I know. Basically, I told Leah Thompson that Beverly from Howard the Duck is like the gold standard for my idea of the female species. Like,
absolutely.
She's got a heart of gold. She's got killer hair. She plays in a rock band, kicks ass, and she's she's not only heart of gold, friends nice with Tim Robbins the nerd. You know what I mean? But she takes in this alien duck and you know what I mean? Like that is
in Cleveland, and no one takes anyone in Cleveland.
It's one of the greatest.
So I mean, it's
one of the most noble characters I think ever. I don't think it's way up there.
I love this.
All right, cool.
We're gonna need a shovel to pick up all these names we just dropped in the last 10 minutes here, but it's worth it.
Like I got to meet Leah too. Such a dork. All right, so we'll do one more Back to the Future one while we're kind of on the topic. Being a diehard, Back to the Future fan. I just have to go with one more. What future prediction from 2, wrong or right, would have surprised the young Caseen the most?
Would have surprised me. Because you said
1989.
Yeah, because you said young, so that changes the question a little bit.
Or what surprises you now? Either way.
I will say what surprised me was how close the Cubs came to winning the World Series. I mean, that was weird. That was really weird. What surprised me, I mean, flying cars. I think even more than hoverboards. Like I think as a kid, I was like, they're definitely gonna have them,
Oh, for sure.
But flying cars, everyone says like they want flying cars, but no one really wants flying cars. I mean, if you think about how many vehicular accidents you see, like no one really wants like, walking down the street like shh, boom, right next to them.
You're lying in bed. And car
it's a little
crashes
scary.
Through your roof. Yeah.
That's why I'm happy hoverboards don't exist because I'm so clumsy. I just be like feet up, all the time. It's great in the film, but not so wonderful in real life.
Yes, and definitely, obviously, a big part of every child's imagination from that era. And then with the clip where they said they were real, that just set it off.
Zemeckis.
Yeah, I know, Zemeckis. Like, I'm still not over that, seriously. So your most recent book focuses on something a little more cult classic, the legendary Dark Crystal.
Yes.
What inspired you to write about Dark Crystal, and what was it like getting the involvement of the incredible Henson Company, which I know you did touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So after I wrote We Don't Need Roads, I was very lucky to start getting some phone calls, and that was nice. And one of those calls came from a company called Inside Editions that got a license to do a Dark Crystal book with the Henson Company, and they needed someone to write it. Now, the fun fact, this is one of those me going too far.
Okay.
But I'll do it anyway because I do. The fun fact is that Inside Editions actually did their own Back to the Future book. I'm not commenting on the other book one way or the other. It's a fantastic book. Check it out. But they did read my book and say, like, it would be great if you wrote this Dark Crystal book. that is, I'll say the story that way. Okay. So I was reached out to. I can't keep my mouth shut, and I get yelled at all the time about this. Are we streaming? Are we on Facebook or something?
No, we're going to be on YouTube later on, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine. Awesome. That's fine. So it's fine. So, hi, YouTube. Hi. So that's what ended up happening, and it was amazing getting able to work with the Jim Henson Company. I mean, Cheryl Henson's in New York. She was just so accommodating. She actually did the foreword to the book. I got to go to the studios and see they have like a giant snuffleupagus that's like right by the door. Like you open up the door and it's like Wonka's factory, and there's a giant snuffleupagus there. They allowed me to take a very limited number of pictures and post 0 of them on social media, which is just cruel. I mean, I love you. The Hensons know that I love them, but it's just cruel.
Yeah, that's a little tough.
But if Russia can get into my phone, they'll leak them or something like that. Exactly. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing the Dark Crystal book.
Very cool. So seeing as how much of your work focuses on the pop culture of the 1980s, yes. Myself being a diehard 1980s addict, what do you think still speaks to you about the decade of decadence?
God, what I love about the 80s is how like blissfully clueless I feel like everyone was. Like I feel like and even as a kid, like I feel like money was free, the economy was great, just neon and glitter and sex and fun and
giant hair.
Yeah, giant hair, and it was just like excess. It was like all of the 70s had so much excess, but like excess for evil, like bad excess. So like the 80s was like, let's just have fun, let's just throw money around. It was like we were like. It was like if you took the United States and put like a giant dome over it and then like put dollar bills and like one of those like air machines, like everyone's just like, this is also fun, in the 80s. Yeah. I hope this makes sense what I'm saying.
This makes perfect sense.
But yeah, that's what I love about it, is that there's just, when you look at almost all of these properties, like look at a show like Pee-wee's Playhouse, for example. There's talking furniture. Pee Wee Herman is certainly an unconventional host. It was the only live action show on Saturday morning television the day that it debuted on September 13th, 1986. The only live action show. And most of the other shows were Pound Puppies and Transformers and things to try and sell you toys, you know?
Totally.
It's amazing to me the creative freedom that so many people had. In the 80s, and it was like it reflected a freedom that so many people felt like they actually had. And then the 90s sort of curtailed that a little bit, and then the early 2000s just the kibosh on it. That's my history lesson. That's my pop culture history lesson.
I love that. Excellent. So I'll do one more before we open it up for audience.
No
stuff.
Problem.
Well, actually, it's kind of in 2 parts, if I can.
Oh, sure.
So the first part is, are there any aspects of 90s culture that trigger that warm sense of nostalgia for you? And then we touched on this a little bit before, but one aspect of late 90s pop culture for me that always brought a smile was the launch of the DVD format, which you talked about. And I'm sure, being a pop culture junkie, that you dove into every special feature of every disc just as deeply as I did. And so what were your favorite special edition DVDs, and what kind of home video collection do you have?
Oh my God, I love this question. Okay, let me deal with the first part first.
Okay.
No, I'll do it the second part first, because that's all I'm thinking about. So my home video collection is so excessive. It's so extra. And I have like 3 copies of this DVD because it was the regular edition, and then the, and I no wides, no full screen, and then the widescreen came out, then a special edition, then there's a special edition box set.
Every version of Spaceballs. Got it.
It's like insane. My wife is always like, why do you need another copy of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? I'm like, well, because this one is the 40th anniversary golden ticket edition that comes with hello, get with it. So the coolest thing, that's such a hard question. Okay, the one that comes to mind is Planet of the Apes box set. Do you have this?
Yeah, I remember
in the head. No, that's a different one. That's a different one.
You got the anamorphic box set, the first anamorphic box.
Yes, I do have that.
Okay,
but this is the one that actually came in a bust of Caesar from Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. I'm going real like nerdy here, but
Yes.
that's the third Planet of the Apes sequel, the fourth film in the series, and it's a bust of him. And in the back, he's wearing a jumpsuit, and the jumpsuit flips open, and it's an 18-disc set that pulls out of the back of this jumpsuit. It's all 5 films, the Burton film, which shall not be spoken about, the entire animated series and television series. It was everything to date. Planet of the Apes, purchased $119, but I worked at Sam Goody at the time, 40% off discount.
Wow.
That's my favorite.
I had a brief stint at Sam Goody myself.
I worked at Sam Goody for a good long time.
One day I made it.
No.
One day I would have stayed, but I got another job that paid like $2 more an hour, and I was desperate, and I really needed
But were
the
you
money.
thinking about the discount? Were you taking the discount?
Oh, I
into
took the
it?
discount into account, but when I was there, the DVDs were kind of pricey. I'm not gonna lie. Like a lot, like the average price was probably like $22, $23 at the time. This
Yes.
is like 2002, 2003. So DVD prices hadn't fallen. Like there was no $5 bin at Walmart
Right.
yet. This is definitely pre that. So
I love that question. Oh, in the 90s, I loved just a bunch of, TGIF and things like that. I loved. I was a big Spice Girls fan, truth be told, in the 90s as well. They were just fun and British and, just reflected an attitude and sensibility. So I love a lot of love the 90s.
Cool. All right. Well, I figured I'd give a chance for any guys if you have any questions out there you want to dive in, or are you going to keep us going?
Ask me something.
Oh, we got one.
Yeah, sure.
Any subjects that you haven't written about yet that you'd really like to?
Yes, I want for someone to let me write a book about gremlins, and I want for someone to let me write a book
Yes.
about Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh man.
Gods, if you're listening, those are things that I really, really love. Gremlins, I'm more of a Little Shop of Horrors fan, but I feel like there's more to get into with Gremlins, so those are two that I do have, I can do like a plug for like follow me on social media, but there is a book that I'm working on that's coming out next year that is in the 80s oeuvre. And if you are a fan of like the things that it's in the wheelhouse, but I can't say because we're going to be up on YouTube. If we were like just like among friends, then I still wouldn't say, right?
Of course not.
But yeah, so definitely follow me on social media and look out for it because it is in the same way that I feel about Back to the Future, where it's like a holy grail sort of thing to work on. This is like a privilege and a responsibility.
Well, I personally am definitely foaming at the mouth wherever comes next, and I definitely want someone to let you write about Gremlins and Little Shop of Horrors too. That would be amazing. I was curious what advice you have for aspiring pop culture historians.
Well, the advice that I have is to be a little bit annoying and tenacious about reaching out to your heroes. And I say this seriously because the Pee Wee Herman book started, the part of the story that I skipped was that the beginning of it was just sort of me faking it a little bit. It was me reaching out to people and not saying like, hi, I'm a fan that wants to talk to you. It was like, hi, I'm, doing a story on Pee Wee, or whatever. Maybe I didn't say a story, but like, there was a point definitely where I was saying I'm writing a book where like, I was just thinking about writing a book, and like being able to do that, start a blog, start an internet group, get a group of friends together and call yourselves something, but, feign some legitimacy and reach out to your heroes because you never know. I've been amazed at the people that have turned down speaking to me, and I've been amazed at the people that have agreed to speak to me, and there's really no telling.
I'll bet. Awesome. Well, anyone else have any questions out there, guys? I don't want to hog it too much, but I have plenty to go. So I'm, a lot of this stuff I'm dying to know.
Questions are fun.
Questions are fun. So
there's a question. Look, there's a question over there.
we do have a question. Oh, all right. Good eye.
I know you got the something. I'm very curious about how much Brian and Woody Frown have influence on the new series that's coming out.
Yes, so the new Netflix series, Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which will be out next year on Netflix. Brian, so this is my understanding. Number one, I have to always say, I do not work on the Netflix prequel series because they're very secretive, so anything that I'm about to say is just what has been publicly reported. Please don't at me or sue me, anyone. So my understanding is that Brian did a lot of conceptual design for the Netflix prequel series. And so a lot of sketches and a lot of creating new characters. Some of the characters are actually from unreleased and like unproduced Dark Crystal projects that were supposed to come out over the course of the last like 10 years. So there was an animated series that was supposed to come out. It did not. There's some storyboards from it in the book, but some of that material has gone into the Netflix prequel series. There's a bunch of concept art that's in the book that's from other projects that's going into the Netflix prequel series. My understanding is that Wendy Froud is 100% involved in puppet fabrication. So she's actually like in a workshop working on this. That's my understanding of it. And Toby Froud, who is the baby in Labyrinth, who is actually their child, is actually doing puppet fabrication for it as well. So the Frouds are definitely involved, and I think they're also working on the stories as well. That's my understanding of it.
Have you been on set?
No. Oh, I wish. No, and it's kind of like Fight Club. Like anyone who's actually been on set, can't say they've been on set, but I have not actually been on set.
Unless they hit everyone with the Men in Black mind.
Yeah,
eraser
the Back to the Future 2, sleep inducer things. Yeah,
neural algorithm generator.
That's a good solution to like writing yourself into a problem for the sequels.
Yeah.
Is just make Jennifer Parker asleep for
I know. That was amazing when I learned that was their biggest writer's block.
Yeah.
Writing. I was like, that's incredible, and it makes perfect sense.
Yep. It's crazy.
Knock her out. Sleep-inducing algorithm generator. So we talked about a lot of mainstream kind of stuff that everybody loves, and a little bit of cult stuff. But I was curious, what is if there's any pop culture phenomenon that you feel was really cut short and not given a chance or not given its time? Like, if you could bring one thing back from the pop culture graveyard, what would it be?
Man,
Did I stump you?
these are really good questions. So. And I always hate when people say that to me. It's like, well, what'd you expect? Bad question. But there's a really good questions.
Thank you.
So I felt that way definitely about Pee Wee Herman, and I felt that way even like as a kid. I felt like Paul Reubens was really given like a raw deal, in the world. Sure. And there's this great quote from Paul, I think it's in the book, where he was interviewed by Rolling Stone. I think it was Rolling Stone, whatever. He was interviewed many, many, many years later. And he said the thing that hurt the most about the Pee Wee Herman situation was that the year that the incident, People magazine named him one of the most interesting people of the year. And he said, I did stuff for Make-A-Wish kids. I had films. I had won, my show has won a bunch of Emmy Awards. Yeah. And now this is what makes me interesting, this weird sort of, asterisk. I really think for all of the creativity of that show and that character, the fact that there's always kind of that asterisk, I think is a little bit of an unfair thing. And so I felt like that's a little bit of something that I deserve to go on a little bit longer. That's my sense of it.
I definitely agree. The interesting thing about Pee Wee, I feel like, whereas in the case of like sports, and lots of different records, they put the asterisk on, and it kind of like it becomes more of emphasized throughout the years. Where I feel like Pee Wee's asterisk is kind of evaporating a little bit. Where it's like he's playing the character again now, and people, our attitudes are a lot different now towards this stuff than they were in 1991 or whatever. Yeah. So it's we're living in a much more progressive time, and I feel like that asterisk is maybe someday going to be completely gone.
I hope so, and I think it's certainly deserved. I think it's
Sure.
it's the best phrase for it is like victimless crime. It's like who is really being hurt by that. Exactly. So it's just a stupid thing. But I imagine, and in the book I get into some of the other projects that Paul Reubens was planning for the Pee Wee Herman character, and it's kind of a shame that they didn't have an opportunity to fully come to fruition.
Oh, totally. Yeah, there's a lot. I wish we got like 5 or 6 more. But like they should have done as many Pee Wee movies as Ernest movies. You know what I mean?
Isn't it amazing? Ernest was really a thing back in the 80s.
Ernest was hot stuff.
I saw Ernest Scared Stupid. I remember in a theater. I mean, the other ones I saw like on TV, but that one specifically I remember seeing in a theater, and I remember like my grandmother being very offended that like "stupid" was in the title.
Oh wow!
It was that time. She also didn't want me to watch Ren and Stimpy or anything like that. Like these were somehow I was going to be ruined for life if I watched Ren and Stimpy.
It
And
is-
look at me now.
Yeah, right. Shit, which is amazing when you go back and watch Ren and Stimpy now. You're kind of like,
Oh my God!
hell?
So
Like,
fun.
yeah.
Are you like really into Ren and Stimpy? If I like,
I love Nickelodeon and all that stuff.
Do
I'm
you
a
know
total, pop culture junkie.
the Sven Hoek episode specifically? I'm not even
Vaguely
gonna go
now.
into
I
it. Just
haven't-
go in.
yeah.
What you know what I'm talking about? Go back. It's filthy. It's so. And I watched it as like an adult, and I was like, Grandma was right. I was like, that show, outrageous. Go watch that episode. Find like a legal way to watch that episode. Sven Hoek.
Buy the DVDs. They're all for
Yes,
sale.
it's yep. Don't infringe on copyright. I feel very seriously about that actually. But
Absolutely.
but yeah, watch that episode. That the nose goblins, I think are in that. But there's a scene. I'll just set it up, but I won't go into too much detail. We'll keep it PG rated here. But there's a scene where they play Sven, Ren's cousin, and Stimpy play a game of circus in a closet. And the shot is all from outside of the closet. You just hear the dialogue and sound effects. But there are lots of acts in that circus. Like a sword swallower and a juggler and a bearded lady and just all it's interesting. See how I went one step too far? See how I said I wasn't going to go there,
'cause you know
and then
what?
I did.
Because I'm gonna hook it all back together. I'm having a big top Pee-wee flashback now. You're
Oh,
talking
the bearded lady
and stuff like that.
Miss
and-
Yvonne, Lynn Stewart.
That's right.
Did you
yeah,
know that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I did now after I read your book. I didn't know that before. But and Benicio del Toro, one of his
Yes.
first roles. Of course, I'm sure you knew that.
Yep, I think that might have been his very first. It was
think
one
it
of his
was,
first, but it
which
was
is really funny when like he did the Wolfman movie.
Yes.
And I told everyone like if he dies tomorrow, they're gonna say from Dog Boy to Wolfman, and that was his whole like arc as an actor, like 20 years of climbing up through the ranks.
I would
in
love for
Hollywood.
like a member of like the foreign press, like it's always like the French always ask like weird questions that like the person, how did your role
Yeah.
in Big Top Pee-wee prepare you?
Oh
Do you
man,
have a question? I saw a hand over
got a
there.
hand
Was
over
that a
there?
question? No, I thought it was you. I thought you had a hand. Sorry.
That's okay. I have plenty more. So what would you say was your greatest source for pop culture as a kid? What did you say it was? TV, VHS, Blockbuster, cable?
It was after I just talked about copyright infringement. It was an extensive collection of films that my grandfather videotaped from HBO.
Yes.
And so I had a cabinet
Oh, yes.
filled with. You can get 3 movies on one,
Yeah, I was
on
about
one
to say,
tape.
your grandpa probably did the 3 movie on
Oh
one
yeah,
tape.
and he
EP mode.
even cataloged. He had like this like composition notebook where he would go in and he would like log. It was meticulous. It
Wow.
was beautiful. And
Yeah, he sounds like a wonderful man.
yes, yes. And so that is the way I used to watch like Great Muppet Caper on a constant loop. I used to watch Little Shop of Horrors on a constant loop. He recorded the Pee Wee Herman show, the original stage show from 1981, and they did like a double header, that and Pee Wee's Big Adventure back to back. So I got both of those, and I would just rewind.
Wow.
That's where I watched so much Howard the Duck. It was
Wow.
all on those VHS tapes.
Oh,
so maybe copyright infringement is a good thing.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe
It's,
I'm actually teaching the wrong lessons here.
I don't know. That's tough to say. It's worked out pretty well for you so far.
I'm actually reconsidering all of my life choices now.
So, other than what you're already working on that we're not allowed to talk about, what is a pop culture phenomenon that you'd like to tackle in the future? Something that like I just have to write about this.
Well, besides Gremlins, Little Shop of Horrors, I would say I'm really into like weird flash in the pan things. Like I once read a book on Beanie Babies. Like this is it's weird, but it's actually a pretty good book.
It's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, and it was all about like how the Beanie Baby phenomenon was orchestrated and then like became this thing, and how like the economics of how like the bubble could not sustain the Beanie Baby phenomenon, like that sort of thing. And I read this book and I was like, this is really smart. Like this is not the kind of book that I write, but this is like really, really sharp, So I think like, Furby, like I was never like really into Furby, but like Furbies or like the Urkel doll or things like these sorts of things that became these big things for a moment. Where's the book on like licensed cereal inspired by movies. You know, like that's what I
my
want.
God,
You know, like that's I
yeah.
want like that sort of thing.
totally, yes.
I want like a book, an entire like 400-page volume on how they convinced Prince to do the soundtrack to Batman. Like that's all I want. Like that. Like these are the kinds of things that interest me. You know.
Well, I hope you get to write all these things too, because I definitely want to read them all. So another one I wanted to ask is, other than meeting your fans, which guests are you really excited to see here at New Jersey HorrorCon?
Zach Ward.
Zach Ward, of course.
I can mess with. No, Zach Ward is great, and I say that sincerely. Who else? I've met. I actually interviewed Elvira Cassandra Peterson for the Pee Wee book, so I have not seen her yet, but I'm trying to sort of catch her eye.
Right.
That'd be nice. And I'm trying to think. There are other people. Oh, don't put me on the spot like this. But Linda Blair would be cool.
Yeah.
She's here, right? Linda Blair's here.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's like a great get.
Oh my God.
Good job.
Super
Good job. That's a great get.
Way to go, Team HorrorCon.
And I saw Mr. Feeney walk by a bunch of times, and that was like, like you try and play it cool. You know what I mean? And people like he was like walking to wherever he was walking to, so you don't want to be like, excuse me, but like, when Dee Snider walks by, it's hard to not be like, oh my God,
Exactly.
But I've been playing it pretty cool this weekend.
Nice.
Sometimes I don't, but this weekend I've been really managing it. I haven't gone to see Mr. Belding.
Right. I have yet
Dennis
to,
Haskins is over there. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I have to talk to him too for sure.
Are you excited?
I
Can I
am.
interview you?
You can interview me.
So
anytime. Absolutely.
Have you thought about doing like a teacher principal panel? And getting Mr. Feeney and Mr. Belding together for a panel.
Let me tell you.
Because then I'll just leave my table for an hour and I'll just sit here and watch that.
The whole convention would shut down if we did that. Like,
that would be
everybody. This room isn't big enough. Like
that would be like perfection.
As soon as we got Belding, I was like, we have to do a panel, Belding panel. Let's get Belding.
Absolutely.
I want Belding. Panel with Belding. Like we had others cancel, then that means we have room for Belding. Like, and it was just like, no, like that's not in the cards. Like I don't know if maybe he didn't want to do it. It was set up late. We already had signs made for the Q&As and stuff, but unfortunately, even though it breaks my heart into a million pieces, I'm not going to get to do a panel with Belding, at least not on this stage.
No, you're not?
Not, unfortunately. No. I did get to do one with Mr. Feeney today.
Oh, that's
though.
great. Okay, that's good.
And Dee. We had one scheduled with Linda. She, what happened was she missed her flight, came in late last night, and being the fucking pro and sweetheart that she is, she stayed like an hour and a half after the convention doing
nice.
photo ops with her fans
That's
who were
great.
waiting because she knew some people couldn't come back.
Sure.
And just was awesome. So then she didn't make it
And
back.
not everyone does that.
No, yeah, seriously, guys. Not everyone does that. She deserves all the praise for that.
Absolutely.
And then what happened was, it was such a late night, she didn't make it to her table till noon today, which is when the panel was going to be. And when she came down, there was already a line so long on her table that she was like, I don't want to turn away these fans. And I'm like, oh, absolutely, please, we'll be fine. Like, it's all good. But obviously, I would have loved to, pick Linda Blair's brain.
So since you aren't going to speak to Mr. Belding, if I can ask, would you have asked him about the Dustin Diamond book and/or Lifetime movie?
Oh, definitely about the Lifetime movie. I love those
You wouldn't be
Lifetime
afraid
movies.
of broaching that?
No.
Because that could be sensitive. I don't know.
That could be sensitive. I like to try, and when I can, contact everyone beforehand and let them know that if there's anything they don't want to talk about, anything they're burnt out, because they probably get a lot of the same questions, I like to give everybody the opportunity to say, I don't want to talk about this, or I'd like to promote that. Unfortunately, I didn't really have that time to do that this time because we kind of put the schedule together a little later than normal rhythm for us, and I had 17 panels to do, which wound up
a little busy.
A little busy, and I do a fair amount of research. So,
it's awesome. Which
but
not everyone does. Also, to be honest,
I'm getting the vibe that is not normally the case. So I like to over prepare because the one time I didn't, it really bit me in the ass.
Really?
We're not going to talk about that on stage.
I love that story.
Yeah, I'm being interviewed now. So what was the question again?
Well, I was talking about, would you have asked him about
the Lifetime
Screech?
movie?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Those Lifetime movies really fascinate me, even when the production values are not very, very high, to put it kindly, and even when the casting can be very questionable sometimes. But it's like almost like even as bad as they can be, like the Anna Nicole Smith one or something. Like I just love it. I'm such a pop culture junkie that if I get 87 minutes of bad movie and 2 cool facts I didn't know, that's a win. Like the Corey movie was amazing, and it is not what I would have pictured. I want some dark Paul Thomas Anderson, Martin Scorsese movie about the Coreys. You know?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like
yeah.
a Lifetime TV movie.
Can I tell you, I shared a room for a weekend with Corey Feldman.
Wow, that must have been very interesting. Were his angels there?
It was
Corey's angels, right?
I'm gonna leave. It was an experience I will not soon forget.
I'm a diehard Corey fan. My sister showed me Dream Little Dream.
He was very nice to me. I just want to be clear. He was very nice to me, but it was an interesting weekend.
Okay.
But he was
I can
very
imagine.
kind.
I can imagine. Yeah, Dream Little Dream was my sister's favorite movie growing up. My older sister.
Yeah.
So that was one of my earlier windows into like what's cool in a girl's eyes.
Yes.
Was I thought Corey Feldman in Dream Little Dream was like, this is what you have to do. You have to dress like Michael
Written
Jackson.
by a man, directed by a man. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
What's
right.
cool in a girl's eyes? Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Starring men, written by men, all this
Exactly.
stuff. But my sister was obsessed with it because it was, the late 80s, early 90s, and the Coreys were cool, and they moosed their hair, and they had ripped jeans, and, if you haven't seen Dream Little Dream.
No, I haven't.
Oh, my gosh.
I
wow.
haven't.
As a pop culture fan, you need
Is this a TV movie?
It's
It has to be.
it's a regular movie.
Is it really?
Theatrical movie.
Oh, really?
Meredith Salinger, Jason Robards.
Oh, get out.
Actor who just passed, whose name is escaping me at the moment, and it's really going to kill me. He was in Red Dawn. He was in a million things. Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah, okay.
Harry Dean Stanton, Jason Robards, both Coreys, Meredith Salinger. Great cast. It's a weird kind of body swapping movie, kind of high concept. Jason Robards and Corey Feldman end up kind of swapping brains, except instead of... See, Jason Robards winds up in Corey Feldman's body, and instead of the inverse happening, Corey Feldman's brain and Jason Robards' body will disappear for the movie.
So it's like a prequel to Get Out.
Kind of. It's very interesting. It's, the only time he can communicate with the real Corey Feldman is in his dreams. It's got this weird Freddy Krueger, teenage John Hughes. It's also the last teen movie of the 80s. So for that reason alone,
Really?
you definitely need this
I
film.
need to.
Killer soundtrack. Amazing soundtrack.
Can I go back to Saved by the Bell for just one
Yes,
moment?
because I
here?
took this way off.
No.
tracks.
I'm just hijacking the interview now, but it's okay.
No, it's your
so
panel.
my question is, if you could have two Saved by the Bell cast members of the kids, of the teenagers,
Of the kids, okay.
and I will include Tori if I must.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Tory counts, for sure.
What one question you would ask the two, like, so you can ask like Lisa Turtle this question, you can ask Zach Morris this
Okay.
question.
Well, I would love, as weird as it is, and I wouldn't do this, but I would want to do this. I would really want to ask everyone about Showgirls. For some reason, I think that's like one of the most interesting phenomenons.
Yeah.
That, like Elizabeth Berkley did Showgirls, and it's like Paul Verhoeven, who's this incredible director, and like, his career definitely took a very big turn.
You
at that
know
point.
Mario Lopez has seen that movie more than
yeah,
all the other
absolutely.
cast members.
I think, for my own sake, I should probably ask Mario Lopez how he refuses to age even like a second since 1990. Like,
it's all the Jerry curl juice.
yeah, whatever it is.
It just seeped in and it just kept him fresh. It's like formaldehyde.
Yeah, something. Because I tell you, shit, that guy is like him and Stamos. It's like they're living in,
Yeah, that's very true.
and Rob Lowe too. They're all like living in a
Yes.
hyperbaric chamber somewhere.
And Robert Wagner, for a long time, was holding on, and then like one day it was like, boop, no, he's not.
Yeah,
Like that was pretty much the chronology on that.
That could be sad when that happens. But
I have this secret fear, if I can tell you, and I've already blown through this 1,000 times.
No problem.
I have this secret fear of like bad mouthing like celebrities that I haven't met or spoken to, because I'm
Yes.
always like, one day it's gonna be 10 years from now, I'm gonna be like, boy, I need to do the untold story of Showgirls, and like Mario Lopez will be like,
You said Jerry Curl.
yeah,
I saw it. Yeah.
Why do you think I watched it more than everyone else? Because you did.
I have a great fear about that too. Like, even when I say anything bad about a movie that I saw, I'm always
know.
like, guys, I know filmmaking is really hard work.
You see how quickly I
But-
rolled that Corey Feldman thing back?
Yeah,
Did you hear that?
That was good. That was a nice
I rolled that
redirect,
back
yeah.
quickly.
See, you should be running this panel. You guys don't need me here.
Not true.
No. But we are almost out of time, actually. And so before we close it up, I do want to ask where fans can catch you next. Any upcoming signings or appearances, or just writing away, waiting for the next book to come out.
Yeah, well, immediately after this, I will be saying hello to Zach Ward. So go visit Zach Ward over yon. I will be at boy. I hate doing this of my dome here. I'm going to be at FairyCon. Do you know about FairyCon?
Heard of FairyCon.
It's a thing. I'm going to be at FairyCon in Baltimore, Maryland. That's in November.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to do this backwards. In the end of October, I'm going to be at Incredicon, which is in Oh my God, upstate New York somewhere. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad at this.
Nah, no problem.
I'm going to be at the Collingswood Book Festival on October 6th. I remember that day because it's my wife's birthday, and she's a little bit salty that I will be at the Collingswood Book Festival instead of celebrating. And today I'm here. I knew there were 4 things, but this is it.
This is it.
This is it
Awesome.
on the list.
Wow.
And find me on social media. I'm just as manic on social media as I was for the last hour or whatever this was. I hope this was coherent.
This was great. I don't know. It was good for me. I don't know.
I feel like it was fun, but I hope it was fun for everyone else. It was definitely fun for me.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Guys, give him a round of applause for Caseen
Thank
Gaines.
you.
Be sure to meet him. Check out his stuff. Buy his books. They're incredible.
Thanks, YouTube. Thank you so much. Nice chatting with you.